Do, 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 do. Let's have a little look. Nice. You can see him coming down the road. And what's he going to do? Put out in front of me. Hello. Anyway, this is Pigsy driving. Slowly. It's one of these areas that are a little bit built up, and you get people on mini mopeds and all sorts of things. Mini meatheads. But yeah, you get people just flying around all over the place. So yeah, there's a few different things. So I just thought a bit of an update. You know, I've been doing some stuff with AI on the channel, and sometimes with the sources, it might produce something that's not quite exactly hitting the notes I want, but it's also producing some good stuff that's quite informative. Ooh, let's let you go. I'll let you go. Okay. So yeah, so it's a good kind of tool, and some of the graphics and stuff. I will still do videos myself. It's just that I haven't done anything particularly interesting, really. You know, I can probably summarise it by this. Otherwise, I'd be like summarising it by what I've read online or what videos I've watched and all these other things, influences I've had, things I've meditated on, and so on. Been doing stuff with like neuroscience. There's a Dr. Tara Swart. Now I'm not 100% with her, but she's pretty good, so I dig into her stuff. You know, I think maybe she needs to meditate a bit more, and then possibly I'll write some stuff for her to look at and ask her to dig in a bit from my experience, which add to her experience, which adds both our experiences, because we have some feedback. So like people do mindfulness meditation, I would suggest heartfulness as well, but then I should also look at mindfulness and kind of like exercising that part of the brain, because really with the heartfulness is exercising emotions. So if there's kind of emotions, you can burn them off because they are stored in your body. You have psychomatic reactions in your physiology and stuff to things, and that's why I say gut feelings, and there's probably other things like the liver as well. I mean, the Chinese go a bit broader than that. Like, for instance, fear is not a gut feeling. Thank you. Because you can end up, well, you can wet yourself if you're really scared. So it's like your bladder. I mean, they are connected, but there's a bit more differently how it might make you feel. You know, there's a lot of like anxiety. People might end up going to the toilet a lot and things like that. So different parts of the bowel. So I guess, yeah, some stomach. But then if you get butterflies, so that's nervousness, you do get that in the stomach. So because the brain wants to know how to respond. And we say brain, and I might as well say the mind. So you might have to say you've got several minds. I mean, for me, it's like a collective consciousness. So I'm aware my body is feedback loops, and organs, and other part of it are spiritual identities within me as well. So if you look at the chakra model of, say, well, will come out of India basically and into China and then spread around the world. But then there's other things, other cultures have certain beliefs and things like that as well. I'm going to put in here because I can't really finish this, so I don't want to rush home. So that's one thing I'll be looking at. I've got to deal with my blood pressure, so I'm going to do some meditation stuff. I need to work on different types of meditation and how to improve myself. But yeah, definitely Tara's book's useful. I think it's called The Source. So, and also I'm doing with ebooks is I'm increasing the speed and I repeatedly listen to them. And so if I get faster and faster and faster, I can relax, meditate, listen subconsciously to it, do the work. Whatever it's heartfulness, it's more about focusing on the feelings, sensing where your heart is, and it's connected to that. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to say, I need to think of something where I was really happy as an experience to trigger this thing. So you've got triggers. I mean, I've avoided all that. I basically wiped out halfway my past, basic past memories. I haven't got anything that holds me back. I mean, I'm aware of things. I can dig into the archive, but it's not at a surface level. So it's not like it springs to mind like, oh, I remember when had this experience or this happened to me. And it's just kind of like over focusing on things that they might tell the story of who you are and where you've come from, but they also take a lot of space. So with my brain, if I put a cybernetic type psychology application, they're taking up a lot of space in my hard drive, having long memories about things. But the other thing I found out is really interesting is that with people with, I'll turn the engine up as well, is with people, say fuel and better for the environment, with people with dementia, I noticed that they have these things where they might tell these stories and keep telling these stories. But these stories are a part of their identity. So what to do with the story is to work on improving it, add more meaning to it, add more value to it, and add some reflective stuff on it. Like somebody said, oh, I work a lot, but I never really had any friends. But I said, yeah, you did get along quite well with people at work. So they were kind of like your buddies as well, your work buddies. And so you give that person more self-worth, and self-meaning, I guess, adding that value to them. So that's it's a part of psychology that can be applied to anyone, is that they have a narrative or a story that they probably need to reevaluate, and then the old story needs to really kind of delete. Like if it's kind of like I hated school, you could have it like, well, I was challenged a lot educationally at school. However, as an adult, I learned the best way forward for me, and so it becomes a much more stronger statement. So it's rather than feeling, because there's an emotional side. I had this experience, it was difficult for me, I felt this way, and the other one's saying sort of like the logical outcome for it. So it's a different kind of neural network. So that's the other thing, different pathways that affect your brain, and whole thinking, collective thinking as well, because people often push their emotions to one side and will focus on a certain way of thinking. And feedback loop as well. Like I'm aware I've done things, a bit like I turn the engine off because part of my subconscious saying, look, there's no point in that being on. But that's the part that drives the car. So this conscious, it's aware of this environment. So it's the sensory perception of things. So for me, I've also looked at as possibly some form of dyspraxia that's in there, some autistic traits. But the dyspraxia is interesting. So it's a bit like the other day, yesterday, and I noticed it and I understood where it was coming from, is that I turned this radiator valve down, its temperature. Now, a woman with partially sighted said, well, which direction is it you turning it? And because I turned it this way, I had to think about it, okay, so it's right to left. I mean, she said something and then she said, yeah, that's what I said. So but I had to think about it. But physically, I could do it in milliseconds. It's a bit like if someone said, oh, can you cook something in a microwave? I can look at the buttons and then I can navigate the layout of it because my brain's quick to pick up the patterns of how to use things. It's a bit like when I do with my job with key safes and stuff to access people's properties, I look for a pattern in them numbers, and that is quite easy to remember it. So I have to do it maybe a couple of times, and I probably remembered it because there'll be a sequence. I mean, some of them are similar anyway, similar patterns. They don't. It doesn't change a lot, like people years, and don't worry, lots of people writing to me. So it's a part of my grander plan, other things I've got planned. So basically working on myself, working on different networks and part of my brain. The other thing about mindfulness and other stuff is that you want to access, because I mentioned you might be using a percentage of your thinking power, like sensory perception, to things like not just like how you feel. Like if you were doing stuff around meditation and you're thinking about how something looks and about your own internal feelings, but you might engage with that environment to actually feel what that feels like. Like if you could imagine a fur coat, the texture of it, like the smooth silkiness. I mean, I can say it in a hypno script kind of way, that you could sort of say, well, it feels smooth and soft. It has almost a soft, sort of tingly sensation, things like that. But you should be able to do that automatically anyway. That should be sort of switched on, or like the coldness of the plastic automatically. A part of it knows the subconscious, but it might be not themed in it. But the thing is, if you boosted your experience at this level, when you have dreams, you can boost it. I mean, you wake up when you have falling dreams and things like that, but they're quite it's not like a little step, or even just fall off a step in your dream, and that can trigger something. So it might be worth working that into that. I mean, imagine like if you was on a dream about a really tasty steak or whatever you're eating, and then you had that feedback loop as well. I mean, I've had things where I felt like a dream where I felt like, oh, I need to go to the toilet, and I woke up and I need to go to the toilet. So there's a crossover. So the feedback loop was enough to bridge into the consciousness and add that to the dream. It's a bit like music, how that enters into sort of the dream part of your mind and stuff like that. So it's kind of working on that patterns to improve things. So that's definitely one area of improvement, and it's probably easier to do in a meditation sort of state. I guess what I'm also doing, so financially I've worked on some stuff to do with crypto, and it's starting to work quite good actually. So I ended up switching out money from different projects, but I was trying to find a good project to get the money in, and I've got one into a good project, and so I've turned like $2,000 into 20 grand, and I sit on it, and it's an asset. So people are like, oh, and you spend that money and stuff, but what happens? It's like shares, so it basically, as they create profit, they share it among the holders, and because I'm kind of the third largest holder on this particular crypto exchange, it is actually. It's going to pay dividends, and then at the moment we're in a kind of low part of the market, but as things pick up and as people get more trust in the system, more money comes in, it goes up, not unless they sell up and they go, or there's some sort of scam or something, and it could just fall through. But what I need to do now is just, there's the money that comes back just to save it, and so as long as I cover what I initially put in, then that way the loss is reduced. And also I can maximize the outcome by diversifying my holdings and then putting it into different projects that I feel they're going to pick up. And one of the things you focus on is the market cap, because everything might be low and might be fairly popular. Some things are a lot popular than others. And there's also impact of feedback, because a lot of it can be hyped up by big institutions, but actually doesn't really sell itself. So one project I like is like ladies. I think it's pretty cool. Elon Musk pumped the price when he mentioned something about ladies. However, the coin talks about spirituality, and all it seems to have is sort of weird images and some information next to it. I'd suggest they use AI, try to find decent quotes, and try to get decent pictures on there, because they look pretty naff in their sort of layout and their design, so that they sort of they'll improve their marketing side of things. That's what they really need to do. So it's better representation for that particular project. But there's other projects out there that are popular that will pick up. Some are claiming they can do all this and do that, and it seems great. It's like what they call hopium. So people are like, oh, this is going to go up in price because it's promising to be like the fastest, system. But the thing is, how fast do you need things? So the first question is, something sounded saying, oh, it's the fastest in the world, or as fast as this, or it's quicker processing. It sounds great. It's a bit like broadband speed. It sounds great, but do you need it that fast? That's the thing. So if I can transact and it goes into someone's wallet within a minute, I don't care if it's a wallet. I don't really care for 10-second speed. If it gets in there within a minute, nobody's going to cry over a minute. It's when you've got to wait days and days or weeks for money to get transferred. So as long as it can meet that requirement. And the other thing about processing and sending stuff around, the more popular it gets, the more slower it'll be. And so there's a bit like with these internet, always trying to upgrade it and improve it and do stuff. But the thing is, more people that buy into it, the slower it ends up going anyway. So it's just it doesn't matter. They have to work on the software basically to improve that. So an example of that is like when we went to analog to digital, because digital used different noughts and ones, while analog had a bit more of a range of different things it worked on. So you basically, that's why you got more channels, TV channels, which you send a more wider range using the digital frequency over that. Other areas, so yeah, I'm working on sort of international romance-y type stuff as well. So I'm engaging with people, and I've opened the door up. So I'm saying, look, I don't mind how many partners I got. People still write to me. It's like, oh, what? But I mean, if you met someone really, really special, and she said, look, I just want you to be mine, and then you felt that strong about it, that's not a big problem. But if someone writes to you and say that, and you don't know them, then they'll most likely be a scammer, and basically just want to isolate you to financially abuse you. And to be honest, if two women from not necessarily impoverished, but they might lack advantages from their culture, and they just want someone to love them and have children with them and all that sort of stuff, then they don't have the same structure. And if I want if I want to date 2 women, that's my business really, and if they're happy with it, that's fine. I mean, why? If my holdings and my crypto takes off and I make loads and loads of money, and I can support somebody else, 2 women from different cultures, diversify my children, because they're also assets as well. I think once you apply one level of psychology, it will merge with others. So how you see that you're investing your time, your energy to children, and also what that represents. And there'll be lots of things like there'll be women that take interest who were married and they split up from their partner, it wasn't great, or whatever the problem was. They've got several children, they're older, and they're looking for a support structure. And then that's kind of comes as a red flag, because it means me putting energy into a relationship that I don't get any return on, apart from company. And then them kids can walk out your lives, or they just keep feeding off you everything that the original father should be doing for them anyway. So I should really, that's why if the kids are growing up and out of the nest and they're doing their own thing, it's not a problem, because then you can focus on what area of that time you want from that relationship. So whether you want to just have a companion, someone to connect to, best friend, whatever you're looking for there, if it meets that requirement, fine. But it's what you got to put into it and what you get out of it is kind of also something to look at, and also what you're not putting into it or what they're not putting into it. I mean, it's not, you don't want to be sort of moany about things, but if you ended up doing all the housework and they want you to take them on expensive dates and all sorts of other things, it's a massive drain on your resources. So what are you getting? Why don't they take you out on a date? Why has it got to be one-sided if you're in a kind of committed relationship? You just say, I tell you what, you decide where I should go, and we do go on that date. And they'll be like, what? Because they probably want you to lead, but it might be, say, just for this occasion, just a kind of an experiment. And so it'd be interesting to see what they think, and then they might actually realise, well, actually, it can be hard to keep someone happy all the time, or if they get it right, it sort of lifts the bar for you to improve on, if that's what you want to do. But for me, I don't really date. It's kind of looking for something committed and something to go forward. I don't want to impress the person into a position where they develop feelings for me and all this sorts of stuff. They're either interested in creating something or they're not. I mean, I don't mind it takes time. It's just that I can't be asked with all this sort of dating games where there might be a few other guys in the background, and if you make a mistake, that you could end up losing them to somebody else, and then all that energy you put into it doesn't add up to anything, because they didn't want to marry you, they just wanted to date you, and all these sorts of things. So it's kind of, but you don't necessarily have to marry someone. Just have to say, look, I just want a commitment there to get to a certain point. This point in the road, basically. So it's what you're looking for. I mean, I haven't really done it, but some of the stuff that on that audio book to Tara talks about, like a storyboard and working on that. So I've covered sort of, so there's a kind of paradox between your own story and this story, like chapter 1 and chapter 2. What does that look like? So it's just laying out the pattern that you're happy with and then implementing it at some degree. And it needs to be a central focus, like money's been centralized focus. Now I'm happy, but I'm aware. I'm always checking on it, see what it's doing. Is it progressing? Is it going up? Is it going down? I mean, because it's 20k at the moment, if something went wrong, it could drop down, but then that's the nature of the thing, and not to react to it. There's a kind of thickening your skin up to not FOMO and going crazy. I mean, if it drops below $1,000, then I'm starting to come to a point where I'm lost to the work I put into it. Because if I got it to if I put originally 6,000, I put 600 in, I worked it up to $2,000. I probably added a bit extra as I went along. I say it's pumped to 20 grand. I don't want to lose the 2 grand I originally put in and go beyond that, below that, basically. Ideally, because then that comes as kind of wasted energy. Because it's not just money. It's also energy of yourself you put into it, invest into it. So there's some other areas I'm working on that I'm going to be moving forward on. I need to work on building relationships. I need to work on some other sort of communication skills. Because I don't always do eye contact. Like when I'm doing this video, I haven't stared at the phone constantly. I've been reflecting, looking around my environment, taking everything else, which I normally would do. So haven't been overthinking about the person I'm talking to. But now, see, I'm looking at you a lot more because I've just reminded myself I should be doing that. Maybe the body language, the start, the open, but it's not always that point. So sometimes it's starting and ending the communication well. So that's what it's all about. Anyways, big sign off. Have a great one, and I will speak to you soon. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention is I'm working on some different channels. So I've got this Heart Mind Network. That's what I'm doing. Sort of big town, the dark side of things, like, you know, if growing up was crap. Work environment stuff. I might look at some stuff like work bullying, and also the reverse of that, like grooming. So I might do a video on that. And the other thing is, because I also do, because I've got a channel potentially for my like work. I might do like healthcare stuff as well. A different perspective on it, but like I've covered some of dementia, working on your story, your narrative, what that means, and also what it means for somebody if they can't remember things about themselves. Like, or they blend them in and don't make any sense what they believe. You know, they sometimes have to ask questions to reinforce the missing pieces. Like, you know, did you remember when this happened? And you might say, well, yeah, it's a little before my time, or, you know, things like that, or they're not sure about things. So yeah, definitely. Anyways, so Pixie sign off. Have a great one, and speak soon. Bye.